So I sang for each security guard until I made my way to Britney Spears and then sang for her. And then her management offered me a production deal.
If you don't have experience in this industry, it's just too devastating. It's just not meant for people with a sensitive soul.
Oh, pretty baby.
You'd be surprised how many times I've seen, oh my God, I thought JoJo died. Like, she's still out here? Yeah, I'm still here. This is going to happen by any means necessary. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. This is what I committed to when I was 6 years old.
Your body like this. Your body like this.
Every girl's dream is to be a huge pop star, having your name in lights with millions of adoring fans. But what if you made that decision for yourself at only 6 years old? JoJo Levesque was catapulted onto TV screens across the world before she was even in double digits, dazzling adults with her deep pipes and pint-sized stature, even landing a record deal before she became a teenager. By the time she was just 13, JoJo had broken the record for youngest person in the history of the human race to score a #1 hit single. JoJo was soaring higher than any other 13-year-old ever had before her. But at what cost? After her much-famed debut, JoJo would struggle back and forth with her record label, as they weren't letting her release new music. So she made another album, and another, and another, and another, but her label kept shelving them. For over a decade, JoJo would record hundreds of songs that she would never be allowed to officially release into the world. So one day, JoJo realized she needed to fight back, and thus began a highly public legal battle, where her label continually tried to keep her entrapped under their roster. But their efforts were too little too late. So join me as I venture into the early 2000s pop scene where JoJo was discovered, all the way into the intricacies of her legal battles in the ultimate pop music smackdown the entire industry is still reeling from. We want to take a moment to thank the sponsor of this episode of Deep Dive, Misplay. I spend so much time playing merge, puzzle, and brain games on my phone that I might as well get rewarded to do so. That's what makes Misplay so awesome. They are a leading loyalty app that rewards you with gift cards for simply downloading and playing games through the Misplay app. For those of us who love mobile gaming, this is the perfect way to help cover the daily coffee run or an ever-growing Amazon wishlist. Plus, it's such a cool way to discover new games. Misplay offers a huge catalog across different genres like adventure, action, word, strategy, puzzles, and so much more. When I saw the game Merge Cooking Theme Restaurant in my Misplay app, I just had to download it first, and it has quickly become one of my favorite games that I get rewarded to play. Basically how it works is the more you play, the more points you earn. You can then redeem your points for gift cards from your fave brands like Amazon or even Visa. So if you want to start getting rewarded for discovering and playing mobile games, use our link mistplay.com/deep dive, or click the link in the description box to download Misplay for free. You will get 200 bonus points for signing up today, plus use our code DEEPDIVE50 inside the app to get an additional 50 free points, which will help towards redeeming your first gift card. Now grab your floaty and a snack, and let's dive right back into the video. Joanna Levesque, who we all know today as JoJo, was born on December 20th, 1990 to her parents Diana and Joel Levesque. Diana sang in the church choir and Joel was a bluesy hobby singer, so it was no surprise when a little JoJo started belting out the Barney theme song at just 2 years old. Now JoJo knew from a very young age that she was destined to be a star and had a motivation unlike any other child to make her dreams a reality.
How'd you feel about your first little concert?
It was fun.
You had fun?
You're really good. Thank you.
When JoJo was just 4 years old, her parents would divorce and Diana would take on the role of single mother, which would make getting by financially very difficult. But that wouldn't stop Diana from ensuring her daughter got every opportunity necessary to make her dreams come true. She would clean houses, always managing to scrape up enough money for bus rides from Boston into New York, so JoJo could go on various auditions. One day, a 6-year-old JoJo was sitting at the dining room table when she saw an ad in the Boston Globe, calling on talented kids for the show Kids Say the Darndest Things. This was JoJo's first real big break, as the show loved her so much. The very next year, JoJo and her parents were flown out to Los Angeles to be on the show again. From there, JoJo just kept getting TV opportunities, like performing on The Rosie O'Donnell Show, and was on Destination Stardom, a TV talent show. Now, to show just how determined of a kid JoJo was, at around 10 years old, she called into radio stations to win tickets to a Summer Jam concert, which featured all of the top late 90s pop icons. JoJo, however, was not there to see her faves perform. She went with the plan to sing for the Britney Spears.
I sang my way through security because I was so precocious and I was like, people need to hear me. So I sang for each security guard until I made my way to Britney Spears and then sang for her. She was like, wow, it's a sweet Southern. She was like 17 or 18 at the time. She was probably just freaked out that I was such a little girl with I was like growling, I was like, does he love me? I want to know. And then her management offered me a production deal.
A very impressed Larry Rudolph would offer JoJo a production deal, but Diana was not comfortable with her daughter entering the music industry at such a young age, telling JoJo they could revisit the idea when she was at least 12. Now, if you have watched our Free Britney series, you know that declining Larry Rudolph's offer was definitely a good decision. As JoJo approached her 12th birthday, she was ready to get the ball rolling again. So her and her mom packed up and left Boston for the land of opportunity, Los Angeles, California. JoJo came prepared with a demo tape self-titled Joanna Levesque, which consisted of 7 R&B covers such as Superstition and Chain of Fools. She would immediately hit the ground running, passing out her demo tape, going to audition after audition, and not just for singing, but also for acting. JoJo would score a role on Nickelodeon's Ned's Declassified School Survivor Guide as the character Lisa Zemo, and she even filmed for the pilot episode. At the same time of filming for Ned's Declassified, JoJo was also selected to compete in the show America's Most Talented Kid. She made it to the top in her age division, but would end up losing to a violinist. JoJo was absolutely devastated, thinking her singing career was over. But in reality, it was just beginning, as there was an industry manager in the audience by the name of James Womack, who recognized JoJo's star power. James would approach JoJo and Diana after the show, offering to take them under his wing.
And he was like, I know you lost this one, but that means nothing in the scheme of your life. I see the potential in you. And it ended up introducing us to Vincent Herbert, who ended up being my executive producer of my first 2 albums. He had a production company, so he was also making the decision of where would he want to bring his production company that I would be signed to. So met with a lot of different labels, got flued out to different, to Vegas to meet with the Maloofs and to Alabama to meet with another business person who was starting something. And then we ended up going with Blackground. So signed with them when I was 12 years old.
In 2003, at just 12 years old, JoJo would sign a 7-album record deal with Blackground Records. Blackground Records was a small label founded by Barry Hankerson, who managed artists like R. Kelly and Toni Braxton. He also was Aaliyah's uncle and started the label in 1993, as none of the major labels would sign her at the time. Despite being a small label, due to Barry's connections in the industry, he was able to obtain contracts with large labels such as Jive, Atlantic, Virgin, and Universal to distribute the music of artists signed to Blackground. This small family-like label is what made Diana feel more comfortable with JoJo entering the music industry. At the time, they didn't view the 7-album deal as a huge commitment, figuring JoJo could put an album out every year to 2 years. According to interviews, there were also multiple conversations stating that if the relationship between Blackground and JoJo was no longer working, they would be able to go their separate ways. Diana also hired a lawyer to review the contract, who said it was a great deal and that she would be protected. So everything appeared to check out, and JoJo was ready to start recording her first studio album.
It felt to me like I had been singing my whole life, which I had at that point. And this is the right order of operations. I'm getting signed, I'm working on my album. My label got my mom a car, got us an apartment. I had my own room for the first time. They felt like family to us. I think that that's what both my mom and I were really longing for. The label moves us to New Jersey because the child labor laws are easier to get around.
So I think it would have been really particularly hard for me to even stay at the studio late in LA, things like that. It's just a little more lenient.
I remember that time. I remember because I've known Vince for a really long time. And I remember him telling me verbatim, I'm putting everything I have behind this little girl. At that time,
his belief in me changed my life, changed me, gave me a sense of purpose, direction, and really helped to crystallize what JoJo, who JoJo was and who JoJo is.
Yeah.
Because before that, I'd been Joanna. He's the one who, called me JoJo, and that's where that came from.
Diana would become JoJo's manager despite not knowing much about the music industry. She just wanted to be as involved as possible to protect her daughter. She would even enroll JoJo in public school to make sure college would always be an option for her. And for the next 8 months, JoJo would go to public school by day and hit the recording studio by night. One of the songs JoJo would record was the song Leave. The label felt it would be the perfect debut single for JoJo. At first, JoJo actually hated the song because she felt it was just way too pop for her R&B style. But her production team was sure that this was the song that could launch her career. So they put the single on a CD that was just labeled JoJo. Without showing a picture of her or mentioning her age, they then sent the CD around to different radio stations.
There was a lot of jokes about like, is this JoJo like Casey and JoJo? Like, is that a woman now? Because I'm not the first. But there was a genuine response to the song. Then when they were like, she's a 13-year-old white girl, they were like, what? They were not expecting that. Not just my race, but my age. 13 is just so weird to be singing lyrics that grown.
On February 24th, 2004, the lead single, Leave, Get Out, was officially released. The song just took off and started climbing the charts, becoming a worldwide commercial success, making JoJo the youngest female solo artist to have a #1 single in the United States. By June of 2004, her debut album, self-titled JoJo, released, peaking at #4 on the Billboard charts, becoming certified platinum. Overnight, JoJo's life would completely change, as she was catapulted into an unprecedented amount of stardom for a 13-year-old. Every day was filled with photo shoots, TV appearances, radio interviews, and performances from US malls to the Teen Choice Awards to opening for Usher's The Truth Tour. While JoJo was living out her dreams, the general public did have a lot of criticisms regarding her age. They questioned if the music video for Leave was too adult, and if the lyrics centered around love and breakups were even appropriate for a 13-year-old. There were also concerns with a young child being in the music industry's marketing machine, and if that machine was over-sexualizing her. JoJo has even said that at the time she tried to appear older, from lying about her age to wearing chicken cutlets in her music video to appear curvier.
With a gold debut record, JoJo is an overnight MTV sensation.
I mean, I'm always having to prove myself, though, because I am young and people just think I'm just there to sing and, but I actually have something to say and I can speak and I write, and that's kind of the hard part. All the songs in the album I can relate to, and people are saying, well, you're young, you don't understand, but yeah, I do. I mean, if people, knew what went on in junior high and high school, then they would probably understand. We go through things that older people go through, just on a slightly smaller scale.
Right. All right, so you're relatively young, early teens,
right,
and it's about a breakup, and so it seems like a heartfelt song about a breakup. I don't know that you're old enough to have this serious relationship.
You know what? Boys will be boys at any age, and I've experienced that, and I mean, come on now. You guys mess up, like, a lot. Seriously.
Are you aware that there is a whole kind of marketing thing going on around you?
Mm-hmm. I certainly am. They want me to be America's next pop princess. I'll be that. I will be that person.
Does it make you feel used at all?
No. I realize that the people in the record industry, they may not love me just because I'm a wonderful person, just because I'm a sweet girl. They love me because I'm about to make them a lot of money.
JoJo, however, was just getting started, and the next 2 years would be a whirlwind, to say the least. After promoting her first album, JoJo flew to Australia, where she filmed for the movie Aquamarine, with co-stars Emma Roberts and Sarah Paxton. While she was wrapping up filming for Aquamarine, she auditioned for the movie RV, scoring a leading role alongside Robin Williams. JoJo was even offered the role of Hannah in Hannah Montana, but declined it as she didn't really see herself playing a high school pop star. Before filming for RV, she went home and started working on her second studio album, recording a total of 30 songs with her producer, Vincent Herbert. Now, this is where things start getting a little weird with her record label Blackground. Luckily for JoJo, she did not sign a 360 deal with her label, as they were just starting to become more popular due to websites like LimeWire and declining record sales. A 360 deal basically is when a label gets a percentage of income earned, not just from record sales, but touring, merchandising, brand deals, and even acting.
So I remember that when I started doing movies in between my first and second album, people at the label were really not happy about not getting a percentage of that. Men were sent to my film and television agent's office to intimidate him. My agent was like, whoa, this is not what I signed up for.
JoJo and her mom started to hear rumors from other artists signed to Blackground that the label was a sinking ship, and even someone who worked for the label urged them to leave. From there, things between Diana and the label executives started to get very tense. JoJo, wanting to release her second album, ended up making the very difficult decision to fire her mom as her manager.
My mom just outwardly hated the industry, outwardly wanted to pull me out from it. I wanted to just work. I just wanted to work and just put out music, and I was just so excited to continue the journey I was on. So I let go of my mom as my manager because it became very, very unhealthy for her. I was really concerned that it was just going to kill her if she continued on anymore. So that was the hardest thing of my entire life up to that point, was saying, Ma, I really want you to be my mom, but I don't see how this professional relationship can go on anymore. The most devastating experience of my life. I'll probably never really go into how everything happened there, but it was absolutely horrific.
On October 17th, 2006, JoJo's second album, titled The High Road, was released and was yet again another commercial success. The song Too Little Too Late became JoJo's best performing single on the Billboard Hot 100.
Your new single, Too Little Too Late, broke a record a few weeks ago, went from number 66 to number 3 on the charts. That's the biggest jump ever in such a short period of time.
So
Can you quite
excited.
believe it?
I can't believe it. I'm just so excited. And the album comes out today, so much going on.
So much going on. I want to remind the audience, your first major deal was at 12, record deal. You had an album at 13. You became the youngest solo artist to land the number 1 on the Billboard and the youngest to be nominated for an MTV Video Music Award. And you're only 15. How do you top all of that?
There's so much more I want to do. I want to win Grammys. I want to, break more records. So I always keep setting a new goal for myself, and there's always so much more I can achieve.
The second album had proven to the world that at just 15 years old, JoJo was a force to be reckoned with, cementing herself as one of the biggest pop stars of the early 2000s. However, in JoJo's eyes, this was just the beginning, and she was ready to start working on her third studio album. But right before that could happen, Vincent Herbert, the producer who brought JoJo to Blackground Records, the man who believed in her so fiercely and produced her first 2 albums, abruptly left the record label. That's when JoJo knew there was something very, very wrong, and that maybe the rumors of Blackground Records being a sinking ship weren't rumors after all. Around the same time, Toni Braxton, who had been managed by Barry Hankerson and was a signed Blackground Records artist, launched a multi-million-dollar suit against Barry, wanting to end her relationship with the label. The suit claimed Barry Hankerson owed her $10 million for dirty dealings, such as fraud, deception, and double dealing, that caused her to abandon her original label, Arista Records, for Blackground Records. Now, this lawsuit was settled. Toni Braxton was released from Blackground Records with the stipulation that she had to pay back her $375,000 advance. But this was just the beginning of Blackground's downfall and a string of lawsuits that would put JoJo's career on hold for an entire decade. Despite everything going on, JoJo tried to not let it shake her up. She started working with new producers such as Danja and was really involved involved in co-writing the songs that would go on her third album. In the summer of 2008, she even began doing interviews to promote the album, then titled All I Want Is Everything.
Let's talk about your third album that you're working on. It's called All I Want Is Everything. I hear you're writing all the songs.
I am. I couldn't be more excited and more happy to be at the place that I'm in creatively right now. I've really been allowed the opportunity to express myself and to grow up. And, you know, I'm still young. I'm not trying to do anything crazy or outlandish, but, you know, this is a transition for me. This is really, this is a new side to me and a new whole thing. So it's been really great.
Great. So any insight on the single that's going to be released this summer? Do we know yet?
We're still recording, so it'll be out at the end of the summer, but whatever it is, I'm thrilled because all of the material that we've created so far has been really to my liking, and I think the fans and new fans will really love it.
The end of summer 2008 came, and fans noticed a single hadn't been released. It was now 2009, and there was still no music from JoJo. The general public began to assume that she was on hiatus, but that couldn't be further from the truth. At the time, JoJo didn't understand the lack of follow-through on her label's end. She had been so successful previously, so why weren't they releasing her album? She even started to think that it had to do with the way she looked. So she approached executives, and the president of the label had the audacity to tell her that she needed to look more, quote, healthy, which in industry talks means lose weight. JoJo was then put on a 500 calorie a day diet and given injections to reduce her appetite.
And I was like, I'm actually the picture of health. I look like a healthy girl who eats and is active, and I don't think that this is about my health. I was like, let me see how skinny I can get, because maybe then they'll put out an album. Maybe I'm just so disgusting that no one wants to see me in a video and that they can't even look at me. That's really what I thought. I am speaking for, I would say, probably every woman in this industry that, you know, your image and your weight is up for conversation. And it's just uncomfortable. It's hard enough being a woman.
Now, what is seemingly the real reason as to why JoJo's music wasn't being released is that Blackground Records lost their distribution deal with Universal. So they quite literally had no way to even distribute her music. But at the same time, we're not letting her out of her contract to go elsewhere. So in August of 2009, she decided to take matters into her own hands and sued Family Entertainment, which is a subsidiary of Blackground Records, according to the HuffPost. The lawsuit was seeking at least $500,000 in damages for being shoved into a musical limbo, as they won't let her out of her contract nor release her music. JoJo wasn't the only Blackground artist filing lawsuits. Timbaland also filed a suit against Blackground, claiming Barry Hankerson was trying to blackball his producing career.
My record contract was kind of confusing because I was signed to 3 different labels, a production company, a smaller record label, and then the distribution company. So I filed a lawsuit against one of the companies, was able to get out of that, and then Blackground moved to Interscope as opposed to Universal, where I had put out my first 2 albums. So now Blackground is at Interscope, and we're getting rolling there. So it's just been a really long, drawn-out, dramatic, stressful time, but good songs have come out of it. I've learned a lot about myself.
Now, when it came to the Blackground contract that was signed when JoJo was only 12 years old, attorneys basically said that contract was ironclad and that JoJo needed to start thinking about Plan B. Since Blackground was able to get a new distribution deal with Interscope, JoJo decided that her only option was to give Blackground another shot to get her album released. So she got right back into the studio to record even more songs.
I've been recording for 2 years. And the thing is, it's not like it was label funded. You know what I mean? I got in with producers that I had a connection with and that were passionate about me and my project and what we were going to do. And just I went and made some songs and created some things. And now the label is hearing it, and all of a sudden things are starting to move forward, which is exciting. I'm going back in January to wrap things up because it's been a really long time, and I'm certainly ready to put something out.
JoJo's hope for this album releasing in 2010 was quickly squashed as she was still being put in this state of limbo. When asked about it, she answered honestly, saying it just has been completely out of her hands. However, she had been working on a mixtape called Can't Take That Away From Me. The title was an FU to the label, letting them know that on paper they may own her voice, but she was still going to find a way to connect with her fans and share her music. The 11-track mixtape was released online for free in September of 2010.
I started asking the producers that I had been working with for my third album, letting them in on the situation I was going through.
So this whole time, they didn't really know the details of that. Like you're holding.
I'm lying. They knew.
They knew some stuff.
They knew.
Yeah.
I'm sure I was crying, hyperventilating, having a panic attack in the studio about what I was going through with my family and what I was going through with my label. I was just so distraught at that time in my life. But I stayed busy. That was what gave me something. So being in the studio was that. And so I asked them, is there a way that we could just put this out on the internet, that we could work on some songs? And by asking to just put it out on the internet, that meant that they would have to forego payment. That meant that they would miss out on how producers and songwriters and all that get paid. Because I wouldn't be making money from it either.
Right.
But that was a loophole.
So that you could still
I could still
release music and still let folks know that JoJo's still
I'm
here.
alive, yeah.
Yeah, because there had been a long time since we hadn't heard from you.
It had been 5 years since JoJo's last album and years of her working on her third, recording literally hundreds of songs. There had been multiple incarnations of this album, and it had been entirely rebranded with a new title, Jumping Trains. Finally, in summer of 2011, a single called Disaster was released to promote the Jumping Trains album, but there still was no release date for the album.
I'm not saying a date.
I'm trying to pull it
No,
out.
all it is really
this close.
And what I want to say is just keep supporting Disaster, and then there will be a release date. Keep supporting it though.
But it's all done. It's all ready. It's all cranked.
I was just in the studio last night. I'm not going to stop until there's a release date.
Okay.
So there's that.
Blackground Records would unsurprisingly end up losing their distribution deal with Interscope. There was really no hope of finding another distributor, as they had basically worked and burned bridges with every major distributor in the industry. By this point, they were hardly even a functioning label. In 2012, the same year they lost their distribution deal, the Jumping Trains album was officially scrapped. Hundreds of songs, years of work, visuals, and music videos all shelved to never see the light of day. You would think by this point, after the 6 years of hell they had put JoJo through, that they would finally set her free from her contract. But nope, they were actually ready to fight to keep JoJo in her contract. JoJo had no choice but to lawyer up again. Luckily for her, these new attorneys found that New York law prohibits minors from signing contracts that last longer than 7 years. So the contract with Blackground should have expired in 2011. JoJo would sue Blackground and their subsidiaries again, stating that the contract was illegal and should have ended already, as well as the fact that they never paid producers and other people JoJo had worked with on her album. Now, sometimes a strategy in litigation is to use power and money to draw a lawsuit out as long as possible until the other party quite literally can no longer afford to keep fighting. Attorney Kelly Hooper, who has gone up against Blackground, aka Barry Hankerson's litigation team, said, quote, "They use every available means to crush you into powder. They contest every filing and push for jurisdiction changes to delay the entire process." JoJo felt as though this was what Blackground was also doing to her, that they were trying to drain her dry of every penny she had until she gave up. But they severely underestimated JoJo and her drive to fight to own her voice again. On her 22nd birthday, December 20th, 2012, JoJo released a second mixtape for free online titled Agape. Now, remember how JoJo did not have a 360 deal? Well, that meant she could tour and the label would never see a dime of that revenue. So she embarked on the Agape tour, which was small, but the money made from it she was able to use to help fund her lawsuit.
So put out these 2 mixtapes and did some touring off of them because my label didn't have a part of my touring. Getting to go and connect with my fans in that way kept me going. If I was gonna keep fighting, if I was gonna go through with this lawsuit, even if it meant that I would lose every dollar that I had, they'd be there for me on the other side. People had got so passionate behind the lawsuit this hashtag Free JoJo movement and people making their own merchandise and rocking it and spreading the word and getting it to people who are like, is JoJo dead? What the happened to her? My fans would be like, you don't know what happened? You know, just like letting people know. I mean, they were my street team for free and just out of passion and love.
We're talking about an artist who has been mostly out of sight, out of mind since she was a young teenager. And so to have that kind of loyal fan base with very little output over the years, it's amazing.
The last time JoJo sued her label in 2009, it hardly got any media attention. But this time around, major media outlets were picking up the story of JoJo's 7-year battle to release music. Plus, her fans were making so much noise on social media that it started to put pressure on the label to finally end this. Blackground Records, which again at this point was an entirely non-functioning label, wasn't just being sued by JoJo in 2013, but also by producer Jeffrey Walker, who had worked with the label and mainly the artist Aaliyah. Jeffrey alleged in his lawsuit that for almost 10 years, the Hankersons received and cashed his royalty checks. Between the multiple lawsuits, public pressure, and JoJo not backing down, in December of 2013, Blackground finally agreed to release JoJo from her contract.
That was a lot of drama.
Yeah, it was really up. I really didn't have a good time with that.
Why did it take so long, though, to let you out of the contract?
Well, they didn't want to let me go.
But why if they weren't releasing? We can't talk about it.
Well, it doesn't make sense, right?
No.
Right. Like when you're dealing with logical people, you would think there's a logical solution, but it was an illogical. The whole thing was not nonsensical. But you can just look at and see what they're doing, which is I don't see what they're doing right now. So.
And I would imagine too, now thinking upon it, in hindsight, like also fighting that would be really expensive with lawyers and...
I mean, it's the most money I've ever spent on anything, for sure. I'll still be paying my lawyers back for a long time. So,
wow.
Yeah, it was... And the thing is, I didn't get a settlement. I didn't get a cash settlement. So I really just fought, literally, to get out of my contract so I could sign another one.
After almost an entire decades-long fight, JoJo was finally free to sign with a new label. Around this time, she met Senior Vice President of A&R at Atlantic Records, Aaron Bayshaw. Aaron really believed in JoJo, and he wanted her to have control over her career. So quite literally the day JoJo was freed from Blackground, she signed a record deal with Atlantic Records. Immediately, JoJo got right back into the studio doing what she loved. She was recording song after song for her long-awaited third studio album. Finally, her career was back on track and her comeback was quickly approaching. But it would all come crashing down again, and it just seemed like JoJo couldn't catch a break. In November of 2014, after being signed with Atlantic for almost a year, JoJo's A&R rep Aaron Bayshaw, you know, the person who believed in her and brought her to the label to begin with, left Atlantic for a job opportunity at Interscope. JoJo didn't really know what to do. She was left at the label with no A&R rep. At this point, she had spent months in the recording studio. Her and Aaron had a very specific vision for her comeback to make up for all the lost time, but the executives at Atlantic now didn't agree with this vision and scrapped the album. This was absolutely devastating. JoJo had been trying to release her third studio album since she was a teenager. She was now 24 years old and probably had recorded 10 albums worth of music, and even at this new label, it was being shelved.
We started making this album. It felt so good. I was singing my ass off. I was like challenging myself.
The people who remained at Atlantic after I left had a different vision for JoJo than I did.
So when I was told, it's really this song or nothing's coming out, I was like, well, I haven't put out an album in 10 years, since I was 15, and I couldn't wait any longer. So I was like, let's go with that song. I completely disagree with the message, but yeah, let's go. I'm not proud of myself for that, but I just had no fight left in me.
In August of 2015, JoJo made her official return when she released a tringle, a term she coined when dropping 3 singles at once. 3 months later in November, she embarked on the I Am JoJo World Tour. However, right at the start of the tour, tragedy would strike when Joel Levesque, JoJo's father, passed away.
My father lost his struggle with addiction at the end of last year. I don't feel that he had the resources or the tools available to him to help himself. I got a call when I was in LA that my dad had overdosed for I don't know what number time that was, and that he wasn't gonna make it. Got on a flight immediately from LA and I flew back and met him in the hospital. He was hooked up to a bunch of machines. Me and my aunts had discussed, what we were gonna do this time. We were gonna practice tough love and we were gonna cut him off because it was too much for us as a family to keep going through. But I looked at him and I just saw him hooked up to these machines and I just couldn't give up on him. I just couldn't, that's my one dad. I just decided that I was gonna love him. And I'm really glad I did.
She had a show in Milwaukee a day after her father passed away. And she stuck to her commitment and she performed.
Feeling that support, feeling that energy is so powerful.
That was her way to kind of keep pushing through. I could have never have done that.
After touring nonstop to show the world she was officially back, JoJo's third studio album, titled Mad Love, was finally released in October 2016. It debuted at number 6 on the Billboard charts, and critics would praise JoJo on the development of her voice over the last decade. Now, fast forward to 2017, JoJo would leave Atlantic Records to fulfill her ultimate goal, which is ownership of her career in music. She teamed up with her former A&R rep, Aaron Bayshuk, to create Clover Music. JoJo's first 2 hit albums that were done under Blackground Records were not available on streaming services. So the first thing JoJo did under her very own label Clover was re-record the very songs that made the world fall in love with her and release them on streaming platforms. In 2018, JoJo announced the Leaks, Covers, and Mixtapes tour.
You guys are giving me the opportunity to sing songs that I thought I would never get to sing live. And I'm so thankful. Thank you. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. If you guys came here to hear Leave Get Out or Too Little Too Late tonight, this is not your tour. I'm so sorry. It's for you guys who kept me going, who encouraged me on social media when I was in a contract that I couldn't get out of where I wasn't able to release music.
After touring, JoJo started working on her next album, which was released in 2020, titled Good to Know. This album is very special as JoJo recorded it under her own label, which meant that for the first time since she was 13 years old, she had total creative control.
This journey has been a journey of learning how to love myself. I feel really lucky, really grateful for the longevity that I have and for the resilience that I do have. But I work on it every day because I want to create a life for myself and I want to create a legacy.